Hello guys, welcome to today's Grandmaster's Choice lecture, and today's topic will be how to attack in Ruy Lopez martial attack. And I'll actually flip the board because we are mostly interested right now from Black's perspective, because we want to attack with black pieces. So I'm gonna show actually my only game, if I remember correctly, in martial attack itself, because people always play, usually, not always, but usually we're running away with some anti-martial stuff. But in this game, the only game, I got to play the main martial attack with black pieces, and I managed to win a very nice game by creating powerful attack. So I thought I would bring it to this lecture, and because there are many positions to talk about, there are lots of interesting things going on, and lots of it was my preparation back in the day. So I feel like it's definitely worth it to show this game. So let's get started. So e4, e5, and on the 3 knight c6. The game is against back then international master, but right now already Grandmaster David Paravyan, Russian Grandmaster. Bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, short castle, bishop b7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, short castle, and if d6, obviously there is no any more martial attack. That's why it's important to play short castle first. And right now my opponent played c3, allowing the marshal. In my other games, for instance in 2017, I played also against Paravyan this position. He played against me a4, and after some fight, it was eventually a draw. I played b4 here, and it was a draw in this game. However, here c3 happened, d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, and of course d5 is the martial attack. That's why this is quite important move, order not to play d6 but short castle in order to play d5 in one move basically. So d5, it takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, knight takes d5, rook takes e5, c6. And right now this is the first position where white has some choice. Basically there are two moves, maybe three, but like after all technically in reality two moves, because white has to decide whether to play d3 or d4. And there's also of course move rook e1 at first, but eventually then still there is either d3 or d4, so basically there is no way around it. So old theory goes like d4, bishop d6, rook e1 and queen h4, g3, queen h3. This is the, let's say, old theory that has been played here, like, you know, long time ago. I'm not sure myself when, but like it used to be the most popular approach here for white. And the line goes like bishop e3, bishop g4 or something, this, knight d2, and queen h5, if I'm not mistaken, is the move. And basically black has a good compensation, at least theories considering that black has good compensation for the sacrifice pawn, and I pretty much agree with it. And the thing is, the trend has shifted towards here, move d3, and we need to ask ourselves why. Because the thing is, after d4, bishop d6, rook e1, queen h4, g3, queen h3. Right now, if the main move of course is bishop e3. However, if rook e4, with idea rook h4 makes perfect sense as well. Right now, black can play move g5, and that's the key idea that in martial attack that black has, that if white goes d4 and the rook e4 line, there is this g5 stopping rook h4. Right now, and bishop g5 is impossible because of queen f5, and there is double attack on rook and the bishop. And because of this, and if white doesn't take on g5, g5 actually is helping black, you know, to gain space on the queen side, some important squares. And if bishop f5 comes into play, attacking the rook, and white rook has to go back. So basically white is wasting precious stamp piece here, which could be important later in the later phase of the game. So that's the reason why they start playing d3, d4, but instead they start playing d3. And the idea is, after bishop d6, rook e1, and right now if queen h4, white would play g3, queen h3, and rook e4 now. And the thing is that if g5, bishop takes g5, rook is pretty much protected on e4, and after queen f5, the bishop can simply retreat almost anywhere, let's say even here, and the pawn is protecting the rook, and that's the big difference, and that's the reason why people start playing d3, main reason. And if, of course, there have been recently a few games, and most notably, I don't remember how the game went, Duda versus Giri, and Anish Giri made a draw. Like he quite comfortably. I think he played knight f6, rook h4, queen f5, something like this. Maybe h6 first. I don't remember exactly this game, but this is of less importance because queen h4 is by far not the most popular move right now, because this rook e4 is considered as slightly better for white. Therefore, the theory developed bishop f5, and bishop f5 is a correct move. The best according to the theory, and right now we need to ask, white needs to ask ourselves what to do next. And the thing is that white needs to develop somehow those pieces, bishop on c1 and knight on b1. That's why they're highlighted as well. So in here the main move, of course, is what my opponent played right now, is queen f3. If let's say knight d2, black can, there have been some games like this, and the idea is of course knight d4, and the main point of this move is that if knight bishop takes d3, there could be some problem with knight e4, and white, there I don't see anything better than this, and right now white has pair of bishops, which could be which could give some edge, and edge to white. However, in this position, what black can play simply knight f4, which is much stronger. And after knight e4, there is tactical idea knight takes d3, and with this maneuver, black is at least fine, and white should be maybe even a little bit careful not to get worse. But like, because right now white is under pressure, but of course with core play it's just equal. But that's the reason why knight d2 is not so great. Instead, queen f3. Queen f3 is by far the main move, and of course right now white black has again big choice. The theory, modern theory in this position is pretty much very extensive. There is queen h4 move, which I played in this game. There is also move rook e8, which is extremely complicated. Bishop g6. I feel like the first game bishop g6 was Anand versus Magnus Carlsen in 2014, maybe 15. I don't remember exactly. And also queen f6. All of them are very, very possible, and they're just different. I decided to go for the most popular one, which is queen h4. And right now, white has to deal with the queen takes h2 somehow, and g3 is by far the main choice by the theory. Of course, it attacks the queen, so it gives additional tempi to white. Queen h3, and right now, this bishop on b3 is a little bit, I know, is well placed, but like, how to put it, it's very well restricted by design on d5. And white right now can take this pawn, right? It seems like white can take this pawn, but this bishop will be much better placed if this could somehow be moved on g2. So it's well placed on b3, but still a little bit misplaced. If it could be on g2, white would be simply better, and because the king will be very safe on g1. But this bishop is on b3, and this is a little bit of a problem. And those squares around white king and make white king a little bit vulnerable in some lines, and that's sort of where white looks for counterplay. It's typical for Marshall, of course, because bishop b3 is always there, and black tries to expand on the king side. And of course, this is one of the main theoretical positions. And in the game having bishop takes d5, in order to quickly cover the alternatives, which are two main moves right now, are bishop e3, which is the most popular move, and the little bit less popular move is knight d2. I'll start with knight d2. After knight d2, there have been lately game Ding Liren versus Rajabov and Timur Rajabov, and sorry, it was Teimur Rajab versus Ding Liren. I flipped the colors. And the game happened rook e8, knight e4, bishop g4, queen g2. And right now, queen h5 could be possible, but the most precise way to full equality for black here is just to trade queens and play f5. There is this pin on the e file that for black that's kind of unpleasant. White plays normally here g3, bishop h5, and bishop f4. Trying to create some I don't know, to attack the bishop and develop the pieces, protect the rook on e1 as well. The thing is right now that while black cannot easily take on e4 because of this pin on this diagonal. So if any time white takes this pawn, black takes diagonal e4, f takes e4, d takes e4, we are pinned. And therefore black has to use very specific tactical operation in order to maintain the equality, and the way to do it is by taking. And right now very powerful move, bishop f, sorry, not here, and right now very powerful move, bishop f3. And the idea behind this move is to lure the king to the f3 square, and right now take it the f4 pawn with the rook, king g3, and the rook takes e4. And this is one of the end games in Marshall that is quite extensively analyzed, and lately there has been game as I said, Rajabov versus Ding Liren, and but in general it's considered this endgame as an equal endgame, and almost all the games, as far as I know, have ended in draws. So it doesn't bring much, this line in general. Of course, white can look for some ideas, but in general black is doing well. So this is the knight d2 in this position. A second move is bishop e3, which is the most popular one. Right now bishop takes d3, knight d2, and right now there are two moves for black, either queen f5, which is the most popular one, and it's like there have been many games like this, or a little bit less popular, but lately gaining more and more popularity, bishop f5. Both moves are pretty much leading to good position for black. The question is, whether what player playing with black is, feel like doing more. So queen f5, let's say bishop d4, and right now both rook f8, rook fd8 is possible. Basically, white tries to give back the extra pawn that white has initially here, but tries to develop the pieces. As I was saying earlier, this problem with those pieces, knight bishop on c1, knight d2, they need to be developed somehow. And by bishop e3, bishop takes d3, knight d2, white wants to place this knight on e4 and try to, hoping to get pair of bishops, maybe challenge the queen side with a4 as well. So here, queen f5 is a lot of theory. I want to quickly show maybe bishop f5 because it's less common, and such grandmasters lately like Nikita Vityugov, Evgeny Tomaszewski, Gabriel Sargsyan, or Setu Raman from India, grandmaster, also played. So it gains lots of popularity here, and probably for a reason. So let's have a look. Bishop takes d5, c takes d5, queen takes d5, rook fd8, and this is one of the main lines, queen g2. And I feel like after queen takes g2, king takes g2, before, this is typical Marshall-like endgame, where black is pawn down, but a pair of bishops offers full compensation for the material deficit. This is what I believe. Maybe people who go with for this line with white pieces disagree, but I feel like black has decent compensation. So if bishop d4, I think this was Sarana versus Saturaman game, and right now I found a little small improvement, bishop f8, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I feel like bishop f8 is just improvement over that game, and right now black wants to play a5, a4, bishop e6, maybe rook ac8. There is certain pressure on the queen side that black has, and I feel like there is more than enough, not more than enough, but like enough compensation to maintain full equality without any serious problems. So my opponent decided in this position, to play bishop takes d5, which is sort of a very greedy move. After it takes d5, queen takes d5. Of course, if let's say bishop e3 happens, and I will just take on d3, and let's say if knight d2, taking this pawn back, giving the pawn back. It's the sort of similar to what we discussed after bishop e3, knight d2 immediately, but with included bishop takes d5. And I don't think it makes any difference. I feel like black is doing very well after both right now, queen f5, or maybe bishop f5. I want to transpose the same position as earlier. Pretty much black is doing well. So it makes not much sense. So my opponent played very greedy move, queen takes d5. And this approach has been tested in practice already several times, but in that at time of being played in 2017, it was not quite popular, and I think it was popular, very popular in 90s and early 2000s, but in 2017 when I played this game, it wasn't popular. I don't think this has been popular approach by white even nowadays. So as I said here, bishop e3, knight d2 is the most popular one nowadays. Bishop takes d5 is a very greedy approach, but also quite risky. Like white takes up some risk. Is of course very challenging because there are two extra pawns, but in general I feel like black should have good compensation for the sacrifice material here. So I played rook a8, the very natural move, queen g2, and right now this is the first critical position in which black has essentially two possibilities. First possibility is to simply play queen takes g2, king takes g2, and bishop takes d3, and we get a very similar endgame to the one we just discussed. And of course, black should be doing quite well because bishop e3, knight d2. If white goes bishop e3, knight d2, black can always go for b4, try to challenge the queen side. And there should be more than enough, should be enough compensation to hold the equality. However, this is certainly possible. But however, there is also a different approach. The second approach is the one I chose, which is queen h5. And queen h5 has completely different strategy than queen takes g2, bishop d3. Instead of playing for equality, hoping to equalize or to hold the balance in the pawn down endgame thanks to the pair of bishops, black right now tries to build an attack on the king side. Because the white traded the light square bishop, all those squares around black king are very weak. And having this bishop on f5, we can try to exploit that by playing bishop h3, maybe bishop g4, bishop f3 if we can. And also we can, if possible, we can also consider taking this pawn because it's still hanging, and then try to create an attack by at first reducing the material deficit that we have right now. So this queen h5 is a very interesting approach that I thought that it's worth testing, and it of course still my analysis, and I feel like this is a very good move and attempt for black to play for the initiative and play for a win here instead of after queen takes g2 playing for the equality. Right now, white also has to be really careful not to go wrong and not to make a mistake, because it could get really out of hand because of this very exposed king on g1. So my opponent played bishop e3. I played bishop h3, obviously. I could have also taken this pawn on d3, but knight d2, and I would have to, if I wanted to go back to, let's say, f5, h3, let's say, it's possible, but it's not the ideal thing because I wasted already one tempi just to get one pawn, and I thought that it makes no sense to just to collect one pawn and to waste a precious tempi, actually even two tempis, because we have to take, go back, and then play bishop h3. Makes sort of no sense to do it. While I can do it at once with bishop h3 right now and ask immediately serious questions to the white queen, which is pretty uncomfortable on g2. So right now my opponent played queen h1, trying to hold on all the light squares, and right now basically it's time with black to launch the attack, and I played right now move f5 with the idea obviously f4. and in bringing all the pieces to the game. I would like to make a small note. Even though black is 2 pawns down, all the pieces are participating in the game, while white pieces, especially those two, are not there yet. And if they are not there yet, and I'm already threatened f4, it means in general, it should in general mean that black has good compensation for the sacrifice material. Because if let's say if this knight was already on d2, let's say knight d2 is right now is a bad move because of f4. But if knight was already here, white could consider playing some move like queen f3, try to kick this queen out, maybe provoke bishop g4, where its bishop is not as great as on h3. Rooks are connected always back. There are no any back rank issues. It's just extra tempi, and possibly even moves like f4 could be considered right now because just tapping f4 and try to hold on the dark squares. But the thing is, white is not in time to do any of this. So for instance, if knight d2, already f4 is very strong, like basically opening the king side, and probably black is just nearly winning here. So first question we need to ask ourselves, what happens after f4? And after f4, black has a very powerful move, bishop c7. And right now we threaten rook takes d3. So let's say if knight d2, we just simply take rook takes d3, and is this exactly same position like earlier, for instance, few moves earlier, like after, let's say, here, let's say bishop e3, I played right now bishop h3, but if I could play this, I could have played this and knight d2. So this is very similar to this position, the following one, but with the big difference that there are already pawns on f5 and f4 already there, and it significantly weakens the white king because of the diagonal that is open right now, because pawn is already on f4. So black can consider playing rook takes d3 at some point and bishop b6. So it is definitely in black's favor that f4, f5 moves are included. So it is not so great, knight d2, and if d4, trying to protect this pawn, then play knight d2, suddenly black can continue the attack by playing simply g5. And again, those pieces, knight on b1 and rook on a1, are not joining the game. They are not participating in the game, and if f takes g5, f4 is just crushing attack. There is black is just much faster here with kingside play. So my opponent played here bishop b6, which is a very good move. And the idea of bishop b6 is to gain some time and essential tempis while dealing with my attack. So I can't, because for now I have to move the rook somewhere. I can't just let it be there and hope that my attack will kind of, will be going on. I still need manpower for the attack to be successful, so I need to preserve this rook somehow. And the question is where to go with the rook. And I played rook d7. And rook d7 is one of the, in my opinion, two possible moves. The second possible move here is rook b8. And I knew about both of them back in the day when I was playing this game. However, if I had this position here once again, I probably would have played rook b8, because it leads to more, more fighting position. If it's of course this move is a novelty to the best of my knowledge, and it creates better chances for black to, let's say, more like creates better chances, or kind of like more chances for white to go wrong than rook d7, because if rook d7 has been already played like a few times, including my game, so probably if I play for rook d7 again, people would like to know what to do then. But rook b8 is extremely interesting alternative that creates some practical problems for white. So if, let's say, if queen d5, king h8, let's say bishop d4, makes sense to centralize this bishop. Of course, white cannot take queen takes d6 because queen f3, and this simply checkmate queen g2 next, right? So white plays bishop d4, And after bishop d4, we can play either rook bd8 or rook fd8. Both moves are pretty much possible, and I'm not sure which one is better. Everything is very interesting right now. But the thing is that in general, black tries to black has everywhere big compensation. Of course, right now queen has to move somewhere because discovery attack on the queen with bishop takes g3, for instance, is a big threat. So, for instance, queen c6, rook bc8, again chasing the queen, queen b7, rook c7, queen h1, and right now there are many moves. I thought that interesting one could be queen g5. It's one of the possible moves, not the only one, but it's a very interesting one. The idea is basically to stop knight d2. If those pieces are not coming to the game, while black will definitely have some compensation here, and this is one of the ways to maintain initiative on the black side right now, and that both pieces are not easily getting to the game. Knight a3 also, of course, is possible, but the question is what next? It's knight on a3, knight c2 doesn't really belong there. Well, if white could bring this knight to f3 and then e5, the attack will be over. But on a3 doesn't still do much. So I feel like black has pretty good compensation here. So rook b8 is a very good alternative to what I played right now, rook d7, which is also, but rook d7 of course is also a very good move. So queen d5 happened, king h8, and right now knight d2. Finally, his bishop is coming to the game, and this is sort of the problem with this rook d7 line, that he attacks here bishop b6, my rook, and I just play rook d7 defending it. There was a move rook b8 which put some pressure on on white, so that's why I feel like rook b8 is a little bit more accurate. However, both moves are pretty much possible. The problem with rook d7 is that this, and right now knight d2, and this knight is coming to the game. And right now, of course, it's not like a big problem because it was still my preparation. I believe black is doing well here. But if I wanted to kind of play for a win, rook b8 was possibly a better choice, at least for the future games. So after knight d2, right now the big threat right now is of course move like knight f3, knight d5, and so on. Maybe queen f3 as well to try to trade queens and try to stop black's activity. And if black doesn't do anything critical or like very aggressive right now, black's initiative will indeed evaporate. So therefore, black simply has to go for some sharp stuff, and there is no sort of coming back after this. Basically from now. So in the spirit of sort of martial attack, bishop takes g3. Bishop takes g3 in spirit of this gambit. Bishop takes g3. With black, I'm basically decided to go for this rook sacrifice. Bishop takes g3. Queen takes d7. Only move. Otherwise, what else? And right now, very very powerful move. Bishop f4. And the idea is that knight on d2 is hanging. The square on g2 is right now vulnerable because there is no pawn on g3 anymore, and if my queen can get to either to g5, g4 or g6 squares, queen g2 will be basically made in two. Basically will be made in two moves, right? So bishop f4 is a very important move. It's also essential not to play bishop takes h2 because after king takes h2, there is no really follow-up to black's attack. It's also important not to sacrifice too much because we still need pieces to conduct the attack. Let's say bishop g4, king g1, no follow-up really, just game over, white is winning. So it would be a big mistake. That's why bishop f4 is a very strong move. And until this moment I remember that my opponent is playing quite fast, possibly was still part of his preparation, and I remember that this position back then was still not the new one. It still happened previously. I don't remember what year was this game, but I remember it was a game. I don't remember who was playing with white, but with black was playing Etienne Bacrot, and I think it was Jan Smith versus Etienne Bacrot. I'm not entirely. Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was Jan Smith versus Etienne Bacrot. Don't remember what year, but it was Jan Smith versus Etienne Bacrot. doesn't matter what year, but it was in Vaikanze. And in this position, I knew that Etienne Bacrot won the game, and position looks quite scary for White. And in this position, White needs to basically ask question what to do. Like Queen G5, if the Queen comes to G2 is a checkmate, right? So and it's not so easy to deal with it because also on D2 is hanging. So we need to decide sort of what to do at some point like here. So therefore I thought about many moves here, but in general all of them contain the same idea. White needs to bring this queen to the long diagonal and cover G2 square, otherwise it's just mate. So there are several moves. Queen D5, Queen C6, Queen B7 are all possible, but as a general rule of thumb, I would say the most precise way in general in chess is to place queen in a center, meaning centralize the queen. Therefore, I thought Queen D5 right now is by far the best move. This is not what happened in the game, however, it could have easily happened. And after Bishop takes D2, I thought that Queen D6 is again the most accurate move. However, the game happened Queen C6, which after Bishop takes D2 anyway is the best move. Queen D6 would have led to exactly the same position. So let's discuss this. Let's say Queen D5, let's say, because Queen and now Queen D6. So this is the main position of the line. It could have happened either after Queen C6, Queen D6, or Queen D5, Queen D6. This didn't happen in the game, but this was the kind of critical for the entire line. And right now, I remember I analyzed two moves: Rook G8, and also Rook C8. Actually, three moves: Rook G8, Rook C8, and Queen G5. Of course, Queen G5 also makes lots of sense, just to give check and force the white queen to move back to G3, because that's the entire idea of Queen D6, to hit the rook, but also defensive idea of bringing the queen to G3, to the G5. So let's discuss all those moves. If Rook C8, I don't like this move, to be honest, because Rook on C8 is a little bit loose, and my back rank is right now could be a problem in some lines. So let's say if white goes Queen E5 with the threat ideally of Bishop D4, I'm not entirely convinced what to do here with white. So and for instance, if let's say Bishop G4, trying to, I don't know, maybe Bishop F3, or I don't know, Bishop F3, maybe play Queen G4 then or something, suddenly it could be not so easy because of the Bishop D4, Rook G8, and right now a beautiful move, H4. And suddenly while Black's attack is gone, and because after Queen takes H4, Queen takes G7 is simply winning because of Rook E8 mate. So as Black, we also need to be careful here. Rook C8 would be therefore, I think, an inaccuracy. A little bit better move is Queen G5. However, after Queen G3, Queen H6, Bishop D4, again, Bishop belongs to D4. White needs to create counterplay on G7 square in order to distract Black's forces from conducting the attack on the king side. So right now I thought Bishop takes E1, Rook takes E1, F4 is by far the best for Black. But let's say Queen F3, and I didn't see again kind of what to do here with Black. Let's say Queen G6, King H1 is the only move, and right now I thought Bishop D7 makes lots of sense. But seemingly Black is winning because Bishop C6, right? It's like if Black can get this Bishop to this long diagonal, it seems like Black is winning. But there is one, I think, only move, Queen G2, and suddenly there is no clear follow-up because Bishop C6 is just F3. And we can't forget that everywhere in all those lines, White has extra pawn. So if White manages to trade queens and simply play different color bishops, opposite color bishops with, let's say, rooks on the board, it is not a draw. It's still far from a draw, and White definitely has lots of winning chances. So I analyzed here Rook E8, trying to simplify the position, and because if we trade both queens and rooks, it should certainly be a draw because of the different opposite color bishops. So Rook G1, and right now I couldn't find actually what to do here with Black, and I thought that White is doing quite well. And yeah, I thought Rook E7, for instance, some random computer line. But the thing is, like what else? Like bishop 6 just f3. There is no problem here, and because if let's say bishop c6, white can move. Yeah, bishop c6, f3, and right now if white can play queen f2, suddenly we are getting made on g7, right? So it's not so easy. And if we trade queens, of course, it is bishop c6, f3. It's definitely right now to white's favor, because even rook e2 is just met by, for instance, king h3. Or king h3, actually bishop d7. But let's say king f1 and rook g7 next is coming. And if we go back, then king f2 is just extra pawn. It's not so easy here, I thought. So rook e7 I thought is the best move, but right now queen e8, and again queen e8, bishop e8, and let's say h4. We get to similar position where with opposite color bishops, but there are rooks on the board, and position is definitely not draw, still far from a draw. Therefore, queen g5 is better move than rook c8, but still not the best. So in this position, I still think that the best move right now is rook g8. We need to preserve our, preserve our rook and keep it as close to the king as possible in order to make sure that our back rank is secured. And analyze queen g3, I thought it's the best move. And right now I was thinking the bishop takes e1, bishop rook takes e1, f4, and rook e8. In here, black has good chances to make a draw, and definitely there are some good chances to make a draw. However, white maintains, 2 extra pawns. But the thing is that if we trade queens, all those the opposite color bishop endings are very likely gonna end in a draw, because there's that's the nature of the opposite color bishop endings. If those pawns will be very likely blocked, and I feel like there's simply enough compensation for black to achieve a draw here. So this I thought was the best line for black. One important for white. So one important thing to note: if f4, seemingly then very natural move, kicking the queen out of g3 and simply actually trapping the queen, but doesn't really work. And maybe this is what my opponent missed, because right now white has rook e5, winning, forcing actually my queen out of h5. If queen h6, just queen f3, and white is winning. And if queen takes e5, then queen takes h3, and again white is winning, because finally white king is safe. Bishop comes to d4, and that's simply game over. Just to show, queen takes e5, queen takes h3, and then bishop d4, and this is simply game over. So I think that what was best for both sides to do is basically go for this endgame f4, sacrificing this pawn, but in order to make sure that those pieces will be traded. And there is no better move than this. And this endgame very often it is a draw, because the queens are very likely going to be traded. Because there is, let's say, bishop e3. Let's say we can play h6 or something like this, or maybe even queen g6. And yeah, queen g6 is the easiest. And right now, queen g3, we already trading the queens, so it should be a draw. Queen g5 also we're trading the queens, it should be a draw. And if queen e3, again we can trade the queens, or play queen g6 first. There are lots of ways black can trade queens here. Actually, queen e3 is a mistake, right? No, actually it's the same thing, because queen e3, queen g6, queen g3 is just a draw, because we'll trade queens, and we should save this as black. Queen b6 of course doesn't work, because queen h3. So I feel like this was the best attempt for white, but still I believe that there should be a draw. However, here queen c6 happened in the game, bishop takes d2, and right now, as I was saying, queen d6 was the best move. But my opponent played bishop c5, and this move surprised me. But I knew that after bishop c5, so I knew that after queen d6 I should play rook g8. So after bishop c5, I thought that queen on c6 is not actually so wonderfully placed, and it doesn't make any difference. I can just play rook g8 anyway, so it makes perfect sense. And right now, white needs to decide what to do next. Suddenly, my opponent was burning lots of time, and at some point he just went down to basically playing on the increment, and he played right now queen d5. I don't remember exactly when he finally started playing on increment, but you know, it's just a very difficult position to play if you are caught off guard here, while I was still sort of in my prep. So my opponent played queen d5. I don't really see a big point of this move, but probably it's still quite okay. However, I feel like bishop d4 would be a little bit more to the point. Bishop d4 would be a little bit more to the point because put some pressure on g7. Queen still on this long diagonal covers everything, and let's say covers especially g2 square. This is covered, so queen g5, queen g2 is not a thing. And if bishop f4, there could be some ideas connected with some, let's say maybe rook e7 or something like this, trying to look for some counterplay on my king. Okay, actually rook e7 doesn't work because queen g5, so probably I would play this move anyway, but there could be some move like, for instance, if I'm thinking right now, I didn't check that, to be honest, too deeply, but there could be move like, I don't know, maybe queen somewhere, like queen b7 or something like this. Would it be possible? Maybe, could be possible. Try to put some pressure on g7. Also, king h1 could be possible right now. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, this could be possible, I think, because if bishop g4, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm missing something. Actually, I am missing, yeah, queen. This is just winning. So yeah, this is actually maybe already too late. This position of the bishop f4 is still pretty much dangerous, and if black can somehow hold it, I wouldn't be. I mean, it would be pure miracle basically, because it just looks so dangerous. Black wants to play simply bishop g4, bishop f3, and clearly the initiative on black side right now. My opponent play queen d5. It's not an easy position to play. So I right now play bishop f4. And the idea is, of course, bishop g4, bishop f3. I don't care about this bishop, this rook on e1. I care about the attack. So in order to keep the attack, we need to keep pieces on the board. And to do it is to play bishop f4 and threaten, let's say, maybe at some point also bishop takes h2, but also bishop g4 and bishop f3, put pressure on h2. You know, there's a saying, the threat is stronger than its execution, meaning that, you know, it's better to keep the threat still ongoing, like, you know, still possible in our hand of bishop takes h2, and prepare bishop hg, play bishop g4 first, then bishop f3, because on h2 is still hanging. One has to do something about it. So the game happened rook e3, and I feel like this is already a very bad position for white. Possibly it was still holdable, because after this, if my opponent played bishop takes e3, it's still there were still some chances, but definitely position is very dangerous. After, let's say, queen g4, king h1, f4, bishop d2, queen e2, definitely it is black who is initiative here. White king is very exposed. After bishop f4, queen f2, let's say bishop g3, queen takes b2, rook g1, queen takes c3, for instance, bishop e5, I analyze queen c8, and white has some compensation right now for the pawn, but right now it is actually black who has an extra pawn, and the idea of bringing the bishop from h3 to the long diagonal to, let's say, c6 square or d5 somehow, it's very strong. Also right now we need to make a note about this fact that even if we trade queens right now with black pieces, and sometimes even rooks, this endgame is also not really drawish. There are some chances for a draw, but like if we can block with the d5 pawn, the d pawn on d5 square, there are certain chances for black to win this game as well. Considering we trade both rooks and queens, so definitely white has to try to defend this, but it's not easy by far how to do it. So here f takes e3 happened in the game, but f takes e3 has this big sort of problem, that right now I have queen e2, and after queen e2 there is simply almost no way to get out of this. I say almost, because there is a way which is extremely complicated, and I'll show you this in a moment. But the thing is, queen e2, after queen e2, white king is simply in sort of a cage, and it cannot easily escape. And the thing is that if I can only bring my rook to the attack on the king side, it will be just simply game over. And but as long as my rook is not participating, white can hold, because everything is covered. There is no immediate threats. But if only this rook joins the attack, let's say through somehow g6 square, ideally, or somewhere, it's just game over. So, but for now, we still can do it with white. So my opponent played right now bishop d4, and I played move here right now h6. And right now I don't want to show the best solution for black, but I just really want to show my approach to what I did in this game, because h6 is very natural move that I played, and the idea is to play simply king h7, free the rook from g8 square and bring it to e6, because even, let's say, if white doesn't do anything, let's say there is move like a3, king h7, let's say rook b1 or something, let's say rook e8, rook a1, rook e6, the queen can never take because there's queen g2 mate. So this was my idea. If I can bring this rook somehow, if only I can make sure my king, I'm not getting mated on the back rank, I'm not getting mated on the back rank after king h7, it's simply game over. So I played h6. And my opponent right now played move b3, and after this move is totally lost because there is no any defensive idea here for white. And during the game, I also thought this simply it must be winning. But then during the analysis with the engines and stuff, I discovered amazing defensive idea that white actually has. It doesn't mean that, of course, white is able to fully defend this position, but definitely white has good chances to survive this relative to what happened in the game. So the best defense is completely crazy defense is to play move b4. It's seemingly there is no difference between b3 and b4, right? So I just go, let's say, go king h7, but right now white plays simply, let's say, move a4. And the idea is that queen from d5 is going to a2. And if this queen comes to a2, it still covers the g2 square. And our queen from e2 is simply kicked out of there. And I'm not saying this saves the game, but of course black is still much better, very likely on the verge of winning. But this is this was the best defense. Let's say if I go, let's say, rook e8 or something like this, it's possible that white can play queen a2, and right now after queen d3, bring the queen to the king side, or maybe this is one possibility. But also there is possibility to play move like king f2 and rook g1. Try to sort of hold it like this, and of course it's far from equality. Definitely black has huge winning chances here. But this was by far the best defense and the biggest resistance that white could, basically put here. But it's just my opponent here already had like 30 seconds. It was basically almost impossible to come up with something like this before a4, queen a2. Like, it's just crazy. So my opponent played b3, and right now I played king h7. Finally getting out of this back rank and making sure I'm not getting mated myself if I improve my rook somehow. Because one more thing, if I let's say play here rook e8 or something, let's say a3 or something, rook e6, I can't do it because I'm getting mated, right? So I can't do it. Therefore h6 is the very important idea. b3, king h7, and right now of course I want to play rook e8. If I get to play rook e8, next move rook e6 is coming in, and that's game over, because the queen can never take this rook if it's on e6. So my opponent played very good move, queen b7. But right now, of course, I can still play this because queen takes g7 checkmate, right? But in order to win this, I need to bring this rook somehow. And I came up with a very interesting idea here, and this is actually a very beautiful idea. I still am proud of finding this. And this idea is to play king g6. King g6, and actually I am running with my king to h5 square. If I run with my king to h5 square, this queen g7 is never a problem anymore. If there is queen f7, I can simply play g6. Queen on h5 runs out of all the checks. Let's say, I don't know, whatever move. Let's say, I don't know, a3 for instance, because there is nothing white can do. White can never play e4 because queen g2 mate. Rook can never actually join the game because, let's say, if it grew like, you know, a4, let's say this rook a4, queen e1 mate, or queen f1 mate. There is white rook cannot leave the first rank. And if this bishop actually has to defend the e3 pawn as well. So the white has to basically wait. So if let's say f3 happens or whatever move, black can play simply king h5, queen f7 is met with simple g6, and queen has to go back to the d5 or b7. And we'll see what happened in the game. Because again, very similar thing happened. Queen a6 my opponent took, king h5. Right now queen c6. Trying to get back to the to this diagonal, long diagonal, and I played move rook c8, trying to deflect white queen from this diagonal, queen b7, and right now I played move rook e8, and finally I threatened rook e6, rook g6. Right? If my rook comes to g6, it's just game over. And again, I want to really say it again. If with my king on h5, I can do whatever I want with my rook, because on if queen takes g7, it's just rook e6. Like, I'm not getting mated, there is no check even. And if of course queen f7, there is g6, and this is what happened in the game. But I'll show it in a moment. So after king h5, my king is perfectly sound and safe on h5. White has any single check, and I finally am able to bring my rook to the attack. So my opponent played right now king queen f7. I played move g6, simply covering from the check. And I think in database this game ended, but I remember because I played this game, and the game happened queen d5. And right now I finished the game with very nice move, rook e4. And finally rook joins the attack, covering the queen. And queen g2, next move is simply unavoidable. So this is pretty much the game. This is the attack in the Marshall Gambit / attack that I wanted to show, and I think it was a very instructive game, and one of the nicest finish, at least in here, that I ever conducted in my career. So it was I think pretty much memorable game for me, and I'm pretty happy about, you know, moves like h6 here, king h7, king h6, king h5. Also here, all of those ideas with bishop takes g3 and so on, that there is like it's very, very instructive, and that, you know, that by playing that there is no time for anything else. There is no time for moves like, I don't know, h6 or something, because then just knight f3, knight e5 just will come, and or whatever, or maybe queen f3, and our initiative will evaporate. That's why it's so important when you attack just to play the most sort of aggressive moves, and try to, you know, cause as much problems for your opponent as you can. And this is what I did in the game. I was pretty happy about it. So finally, I want to identify the major mistake here is bishop c5. It still doesn't lose, but it makes white's task extremely difficult. Queen d6 is the best try to sort of hope for, you know, a win still for white, but with best play, of course, black should be able to hold it. If bishop c5, rook g8, white's position is pretty much very dangerous. However, possibly it's still not so bad. But you know, in general, it's extremely difficult position to play with white, and this game, I think, proved it, that, you know, over the board, it's very, very dangerous, and I still really like black's chances, you know, I still believe that in many games black will be able to win it, at least on human level. Maybe computers can hold it, of course, but like on human level, it looks extremely scary. So and finally, this position, this is just, you know, really nice. This because king is kind of caged right now on g1. If this my rook joins, and I finally managed to do it, the game was over. So this is pretty much all I have for this lecture about Grandmaster's Choice, and yep, so I will start soon next lecture. So that's all I have for this, about this martial attack. I hope you liked it. And the next one will be about games of the week, which will be on clutch games between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. Thank you, guys.